All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. My name is Rachel Johnson, and I'll be your host today. Our webinar is entitled Optimizing ABM Through Trial and Error. And before we get started, I wanted to go over just a few housekeeping details. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be sent to you within 24 hours after the webinar, so you can share it with all of your colleagues. And while we're presenting, all participants will actually be in listen-only mode. And if you have a question during the webinar, please use the chat box on the side of your webinar. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have an opportunity to ask a few questions to Elle. So as I mentioned, my name is Rachel Johnson, and I am the Director of Demand Generation from PFL. And a little bit about me. So I've spent most of my career in SaaS technology. I'm actually based in Indianapolis, Indiana, and our other PFL headquarters in the start of our PFL was actually in Livingston, Montana. So I started my career in marketing. I've loved marketing since the moment I got into it, and I've really focused the last couple of years in demand gen. I'm actually a Midwest girl at heart. As I mentioned, I am from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I love using data to make decisions in my marketing efforts. And so I'm actually going to turn it over to Elle to talk a little bit more about her ABM strategy at PathFactory.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Hi, everybody. Thanks for spending a couple minutes here with me this afternoon. My name is Elle Woulfe. I'm the VP of Marketing at PathFactory. We used to be called Lookbook HQ not too long ago, so in case you're confused about who the heck is PathFactory, we are the folks from Lookbook HQ. We rebranded back in May. A little bit about me. I am a demand gen marketer at heart. I've been working in demand gen roles. I was at Elle Woulfe for quite a while in the demand gen team there, and then headed up, really built the demand gen function at Lattice Engine. So I've been in MarTech for quite a while, and that kind of makes me a big giant marketing nerd. I really love the math and science part of marketing as much as I love the creative side. So I like to think I'm pretty balanced, but I do love the sort of forensics piece of marketing. I'm a native New Englander based outside of Boston, Massachusetts. PathFactory is actually a Toronto-based business. So I'm kind of an honorary Canadian because Elle Woulfe was also based in Toronto, so I've been sort of doing the Toronto commute for quite a long time, and really am pleased to call Toronto my second home. So that's a little bit about me. So let's dive right in. This is actually similar to a presentation that I gave a few months back at the Demand Base event, and I think people are craving or hungry for real tactical details around how people are doing ABM. So I'm really going to pull back the curtain today and show you all the nitty-gritty details. But I often like to start when we talk about ABM with sort of the just setting a baseline. What is the big deal about target accounts? Why is ABM such a huge thing right now? And really, it all kind of comes down to one thing for me, and this, is, sorry, I jumped ahead here, and this is, if you're doing ABM correctly, if you are thinking about ABM in a really smart and strategic way, then your target accounts represent your best revenue opportunities, right? It's not just some random list of the biggest logos in your geographic territory. You've actually done the work to identify which accounts make the most sense for us to sell to, and therefore they represent the fastest path to revenue. That's really the big deal about ABM and about target account marketing. So, I talk to marketers all the time about ABM, and they're saying, oh, I'm going to buy this tool, or I'm going to do this tactic or this thing, and I'm going to be, we're going to do ABM. And that really for me always, sort of lands like in this kind of weird way, because I don't really think of that as doing ABM. So that's not to say that targeted display or some targeted content or campaigns aren't part of ABM. They're a critical part of ABM. But when I say this and not this, I really think that a lot of the core work in ABM is around the hard stuff. It's the identification of the target accounts. It's building ideal customer profile models. It's finding ways to score accounts. So actually what you see on the left-hand side here is a whole bunch of manual work we did around building target account lists, trying to score them, figuring out when the last activity we had with those people were. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing on the process and operations side, the less sexy stuff is really the core work of ABM, which then allows you to apply marketing to, to that strategy. So that's kind of how I think about it. The one thing I've really kind of gotten hip to over the past couple months anyway is this idea that it's really hard to have ABM, account-based marketing, without an account-based selling strategy. And that's because, if you're a marketer and you're pouring your heart and soul into doing this like great ABM stuff, but there's no follow-through or focus on the sales team, like those target accounts that you're marketing into are sort of just this optional thing that they could spend time on, you're not going to see great results from that. So rolling out a completely cohesive target account selling and target account marketing effort is really what has allowed us to see great results. Instead of just, running a whole bunch of targeted campaigns into a target account cohort that maybe, sales wasn't following up with as diligently. So I really think these two things need to go hand in hand, and I'm going to talk a lot about how we got there. So I'm going to just say that, we have done a lot with ABM over the past, almost 2 years now, and it's really been a process of a lot of trial and error. We've bitten it off piece by piece. I think a lot of marketers go into ABM thinking like, we got to go and do all the things, and we got to have this whole big giant. It's like, I think that's a perfect way to not get anywhere, because I think inertia tends to be our biggest enemy in marketing. So we kind of did this 5-step process, and I'm going to be really honest, it was accidental. We didn't go into it saying, we're going to do this Agile ABM thing. We just basically approached it piece by piece and learned something with each step we took that allowed us to optimize and perfect it. So what that looked like was, really a crawl, walk, run approach. The first part was just like, what are the target accounts? Who do sales think they're targeting today and why? And then eventually we tore that account list down to the ground and started over. So I'll explain how we did that. The second thing was like, let's try a little ABM. Let's sprinkle a little in there. Let's run a couple of targeted display campaigns and targeted, email campaigns and see what that yields so we can start to understand and develop a baseline for what we're trying to do. The next piece was, okay, now that we see kind of how this stuff works, how can we really tighten up the target and narrow the beam on who we're focusing on from a target account marketing perspective? I know I talk to marketers all the time, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're doing ABM, and we have an account list of 25,000 accounts or even 5,000 accounts, and I'm just like, okay, that feels like way too many to really be able to prove that you can move the needle. Like I do think at some point, and if you really are focusing on who your best potential customers are, chances are that list is a lot smaller. And then, we had to kind of, through this whole process, as we were kind of figuring things out, we had to kind of go back to, like, what are we trying to accomplish here? We're trying to drive higher ACVs, faster deal cycles, and advocacy among a core group of targets. And let's get really focused on how to do that. And it was at that point that we decided to get really serious. We now run a 100% sort of ABM model, which is target account selling and target account marketing. That is our sole focus, but we didn't get there overnight. It took us quite a long time to get there. So let me tell you how we did it. Oh, okay, here we go. So the first piece was sort of tearing down the target account. So this has happened everywhere I've worked where basically, there is some top 25 accounts that each rep has or, some target account methodology. And suddenly marketing gets hip to the fact that, they want you to provide some air cover, do some marketing into their target accounts. And you start to peel back the onion a little bit and look at those target accounts, and they make no sense. And that's essentially what happened here. We started to look at what is this target account universe that sales is going after, and we realized pretty quickly that it wasn't based on who our ideal customers, our ideal customer profile. Like, sure, they were, some of the biggest logos in the geographic patch or whatever, but they weren't necessarily our ideal customer. So, our CEO said one time, target accounts should be the fastest path to ARR, and I truly believe that. They should be your best revenue opportunities. More even than ARR, one of the things we're trying to extract from future customers is advocacy. We want customers who love our platform and our technology so much that they will go tell other marketers about it. That's a really critical thing for us. So when we started to build our target account rationale and looked at who we should be selling to, we really were focused on where can we find the best ARR opportunities and marketers who are going to be so successful that they're going to go and shout it from the rooftops. That was sort of the basis for what we were looking at. So when we started to look at building an ideal customer profile, building the target account segment, and again, our goal here was like, can we show sales a better cohort to focus on and get them excited about it? The goal was to help them take more high percentage shots, identify the accounts that they're going to be more successful in selling to, that those accounts would be more successful in using our technology, and that we could naturally derive, better sale price from those accounts. That's what we were after, right? So we built an ideal customer profile. In the first version of this, what we did was we looked at a cohort of our current customers, and then we took actually all of our won-lost opportunities as well. Our thinking there was we needed a large enough sample, and we thought that anything we had gotten to a pretty positive outcome down the funnel was worth taking a look at what the criteria or what the signals were for those company. We controlled for noise, which means we did take out a lot of early customers really early in our journey, maybe deals that weren't representative of the types of deals that we're selling today. So that was the group that we looked at. And then what we tried to do, and I spent quite a while in a predictive analytics organization, so I know a bit about that, and we basically kind of tried to build a regression model ourselves. We were trying to identify the most common attributes of successful outcomes. What do the companies have in common when they become a great customer for us, when they get really far down the funnel, and it's a really positive outcome? And we were looking for the stuff we didn't already know. We already knew what size company they were in revenue bands and all of that stuff. We were looking for what's beneath the iceberg, what's underneath the surface. So the ICP consists of a couple things. The first is some basic demographic and firmographic stuff. We're looking for, what marketing automation platform they have, because that's actually a really key and important part to, who we can sell to. But then we were looking for much more advanced technographic and firmographic signals. And we just used the data provider we'd been using for this. We ran all that data against that cohort that I just mentioned. And we found a whole bunch of things that these companies had in common, similarities to when, the year they were founded, or their Alexa rank, or how much marketing technology they use became really important signals for this is the blueprint of the customer we want in the future. So that was the first thing that we did. And then when we built this ICP, it yielded a lot of companies, actually, like in the thousands, and I'm going to talk about how we sort of whittled that down. But I wanted to know, like, okay, if we really focused on these companies, what would happen? And I knew in order to do that, I had to operationalize how we would approach the ICP. Again, there's an amount of selling focus that has to happen for you to understand if it's actually working, right? Like, if we could do all the best ABM in the world to that ICP, sorry, that was a lot of acronyms there, but you could be running all the best, ABM campaigns really targeted against your target list, but if sales doesn't have some focused effort against that target account universe, you're not going to actually see the results. Excuse me. So we started a process where we were assigning 75 target accounts to our BDR team for outbound focus. So even if, we weren't getting a nice warm response coming in, we knew they were going to put some effort against it. So we could start to see what would happen. So this is what that looked like. And so now we've got this, this core sort of ICP cohort that we're going after. We've convinced our sales team that, this is, we didn't go to the extent of, basically reassigning them target accounts or anything. We just said, this is the universe that we think is really important to us, and we're going to focus on how to heat those up. And part of that, again, was, having some BDR outbound focused effort against those accounts. And the other part was what I'll just call sort of ABM Light. So the first piece of it was we had already been using PFL as our direct mail vendor through really, being able to deliver really targeted direct mail packages through Salesforce.com. So we had another campaign running. And when we sort of moved into this, a target account ABM focused campaign, we decided to do a sort of something bigger and a little bit more interesting with our direct mail. So we rolled out this really cool ViewMaster campaign, and it was this, it was moving past primitive marketing metrics. And you got this cool ViewMaster, and you click through, and you would see this cool little story about why marketing data, is kind of in the stone ages, and how, at the time, Lookbook HQ could help you solve that problem. So this was the first piece of our ABM campaign that we launched, and basically any salesperson or BDR could, at the contact level within Salesforce.com, say, okay, I'm really trying to get my foot in the door at this account. I want to get a meeting with this person. They'd click a little button. Their Swag IQ menu would pop up in Salesforce, and they could select this as an option to send to that person. And then what's really cool is the BDR would get an alert once that package was delivered. And they would quickly send a follow-up, hey, I hope you got that thing I sent you. You know, we also have a digital version of this little caveman campaign, so they would try to get somebody to engage with that. And they had huge success being able to set up meetings based on someone receiving this direct mail package. So it was really helpful in getting our foot in the door with those target accounts. So that was the first thing we launched. The next piece of it was basically we took a lot of the standard campaigns we had been running. So this is sponsored social stuff, display campaigns, retargeting, some content syndication. Those are all air cover campaigns we've been running in our sort of horizontal demand gen anyway. We took those campaigns and we just deployed them against our target account list, right? So this was not customized, it was just targeted. It was like, take all the stuff we're doing and make sure those target accounts are receiving those messages from us, even though they're sort of broad-based messages that could apply to anyone. That was the second thing we did. Like, let's just get some air cover going and see if we can heat them up. So that's why I kind of call it ABM Light, because we didn't go to the extent of mapping specific messages or use cases or content or anything like that. That came later. So let me talk about what happened. You know, in terms of our phase 1 results, we saw much stronger conversion of this cohort, this target account cohort in our funnel. So, you know, when we compared them side by side with our standard sort of non-target account, non-ICP accounts, the ICP outperformed the standard set. So from MQL to SQL, we saw an increased 15% conversion, which is like pretty tremendous actually in terms of what we're going to yield at the bottom. And then from our SQL is basically when we set a meeting to SQL, which is at reaching qualified opportunity stage, we saw a big increase there. So not only did the demand that we created amongst these ICPs, you know, convert to meetings better, once we had those meetings, they converted to opportunities better. So that was really exciting for us because it told us, okay, you've done the right thing with this ICP. You have actually figured out the cohort of companies that is a better quality of lead and potential customer for you, and that's what we were trying to do. Perhaps even more excitingly was when we started to watch this and follow it down the funnel. To be clear, this was going on for, I mean, months and months and months. This did not happen overnight. We had to sort of follow this data for quite a long time, but we saw much higher ACVs from those ICP accounts. When we were successful in selling to them, they are willing to pay us a lot more money. They inherently get the value and are excited to sort of transform their marketing using the PathFactory content insight and activation platform. And the other thing we've started to track over a long period of time, because we do tag all these companies as ICP, we tag it at the account and the contact level in Salesforce. We basically have now determined that 75% of our churn, so any account that churns, if we look at them, 75% of them are not in our ICP. So again, just goes to show by doing all this work on really trying to identify the best target accounts, not only did we zero in on the ones that, you know, close for higher rates, that convert through the funnel at a stronger rate, but actually that stick around a lot longer, and that's a really key part of what we're looking for. So this was our first foray into ABM. It really focused on building the right target account list to focus on, and again, that target account list was really quite big, and it was not, you know, religion at this point. It was just, you know, marketing was really trying to drive this idea that if we could compare, you know, results against our ICP to everybody else, would we see stronger performance, and we certainly did. So now we're all excited about it, and we're like, what else can we do? Let's get serious about this. So we decided to see if we could tighten up that target, because again, our ICP cohort at that point was really large, like a couple thousand companies. So we did a couple things. We built a whole bunch of new ways of looking at that ICP, and the first thing I kind of went to was, well, let's find a way to score them. Let's not treat all ICP accounts the same. So basically, we built a scoring model that looked at demographic and technographic fit, and sort of how close that fit was to what we were looking for. Because again, for us, we sell marketing technology. It's marketing technology for companies that have a pretty mature tech stack, that have a pretty mature approach to demand gen. So we we already knew that there were some key, technographic things that made sense that we needed to have, but we started to find a way to kind of create a proxy for how mature is the tech stack, and that was like how much technology they used and certain types of technology. So for example, if we can detect that they're using certain ABM technologies or certain analytical capabilities, that's a really key indicator for us that their tech stack is pretty mature and their approach to marketing is pretty mature. The next thing we did was we built sort of an account tiering system, which was more a tool for the sales team, looking at spend potential, which was kind of based on either how much funding they had received or how much revenue they had on an annual basis. And we basically plotted this out with their ICP score. So the sales team could go, okay, I'm about to call this account. They're an ICP A account. That's really great. And on an account tier perspective, they're a B. And these become sort of tools they can use to prioritize what they're doing. The last thing we did that everybody is always so curious about was we actually built in a psychographic component. So again, our technology is, our platform allows marketers to deliver content in a whole new way and really measure what is happening after someone clicks on their content, the actual engagement that they're seeing. It's a whole new class of data that marketers can incorporate into their lead management processes, and it's pretty transformational. But in order to really get excited and to get value from it, you've got to, again, be a pretty modern performant marketer. So we started looking for signals of, does the marketing team within this account have this DNA of performance? And so everyone always wants to know how we did that, and I'll just say, basically what we did was and this was completely manual, we looked for what we thought were proxies for marketing maturity and performance within the organization. Some of that was marketers who had won certain awards, who had adopted certain types of technology at different early points in their careers. So we got really creative in how we built that psychographic model, and that resulted in an account cohort that today we call the tip of the spear. So taking that huge base of ICP companies and really zeroing in on the ones that are the best of the best. So that's how we did that. And so after we had done all this work, that's me, by the way, that's a little avatar of me, we did all this work and we zero in on this great, awesome base of companies that I think these are the people, they're going to get us, they're going to buy our stuff, they're going to spend a lot of money, they're going to stick around forever, they're going to be huge advocates for this platform. And we did all this work and I'm like, I think there's a better way to approach this, because if we basically deploy all of our tools and all of our campaigns against this cohort, but we don't do it in conjunction with 100% focused selling effort, we're not going to see great returns. And why, if you truly buy into the idea that we had zeroed in on 1,200 companies that represented the absolute best, sales opportunities for us, why would we waste our time on anybody else? Why would we, have our sales team out there trying to sell to any little company when these are the ones that, if we just double down efforts, we believe could make us, could make our year, could make make us really successful. So around this time is when we started to go, the whole point of this is to sell more stuff to the best accounts, to do it faster, and to drive, our ACVs up. This is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to be a successful company, and that's about finding great customers who see a ton of value and are willing to pay for it. So that's all about selling. And, at this point, our sales team was still in geographic territories, which meant within a geo, they, owned any account in that geographic territory. They were split up in terms of sort of a mid-market and an enterprise focus. We still ran a standard demand gen model. So, companies still had to reach MQL threshold, and then they got passed to a BDR, and that BDR started to, tried to create a meeting. But we weren't really selective about who we were focused on. We were tracking this cohort of our ideal customer profile to see how they, compared to everybody else, but they weren't our sole focus at that point. We just, were trying to heat them up and see if they'd convert better. So we basically decided at this point, let's focus 100% on what we believe are our best bets. So it was around this time that we said goodbye to geographic territories, to the construct of mid-market or enterprise, and really we started to deprioritize any demand that we saw coming in from non-target accounts. Now, that doesn't mean that we completely just kick them to the curb. People ask us all the time. We still get tons of marketers who are at non-target accounts. They may still be an ICP fit company, they still had some of those criteria, but they weren't that tip of the spear. And those folks still request demos from us. They engage with our content. They come to programs like this, like that, and we still service that demand. We actually still run a non-target account standard demand gen funnel with an MQL criteria that's based on scoring. What we did was we made it a little bit harder for those folks to get through our funnel, and I can talk a little bit about how we actually handle that demand in just a minute. But basically what we did was we started to assign those tip of the spear accounts, those target accounts, to our sales team. So now every salesperson owns, let's call it 130 to 150 target accounts. It is not based on geography. There is a mix of mid-market and enterprise in there, and their sole focus is closing those accounts. And we run a tremendous amount of marketing against those accounts. So what we do for the non-target demand that comes through our traditional MQL-based sort of funnel, again, we've created some scoring criteria where if you're an ICP company, not a target account company, but an ICP company, the behavioral criteria for becoming an MQL is a little looser. If you don't register at all on our ICP radar, it's pretty hard for you to reach MQL status, which just means you won't get a call back quite as easily. And when that demand comes in, we actually distribute it on a round-robin basis to our BDRs. And the result of that, if they book meetings off of those accounts, those are distributed on a round-robin basis to our sales team. So that's how we kind of handle the division between target accounts and non-target accounts. So now we're in this sort of crazy place where we're like, this is it. We're going to live and breathe this target account world. And if we're going to do that, that means we also need to go all in on how we market to those accounts. It can no longer be just the same message for everybody. We got to get a lot more specific. We've got to make sure that if we're telling our sales team, you're going to own these 130 accounts and nothing else, that we do everything in our power to make them successful in selling to that 130 accounts. So let me talk about what all in on ABM looks like. So the first thing we did was build a lot of process and operational frameworks. We reveal a lot of information to our salespeople and our BDRs through Salesforce. So you can see here the screen that they would see at the account level. So it has the ICP score and the rating. This is this little strategic relevance and revenue potential chart that we built for them to give them a ranking. And again, that's based on if you're an ICP-A account, those are stronger signals for us that you're a good prospect. And you are a, $2 billion company, you're probably going to have a really strong score here. And, we just give them all this information. We also tracked a whole bunch of use cases. Do they run ABM technology? Do they have a strong focus on analytics? Are they running a free trial? Because we actually have some really strong use cases of our customers who run free trials and use our platform as part of that. Was there a lost opportunity with this company? So really this is kind of a re-engagement. And so we used all of that. It's both to reveal it to the seller to give them, a lot more insight into who they're calling, and you can see we use Datanyze to collect a lot of this information. But it was also how we aligned our campaigns and our content and our programs. So I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. So this was the first piece of it. Make sure we have a really sound process and operational framework for it. The second thing was aligning messages and channels. So you can see here a lot of the different channels that we use on the sales side at SalesLoft and Nudge quite a bit. We also use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. On the marketing side, it was PFL for direct mail. We do target account retargeting with AdRoll. We do a lot of stuff with LinkedIn. We've found that's been very, very successful. We've actually had quite a bit of luck targeting on Facebook, and then we do target account content syndication with DemandWorks Media. That's also been very successful. Now that's in addition to other things. I mean, we do have target account lead nurture programs set up, and those already existed, and those are stage-based. But what we did was by basically looking at the type of technology they use, and we actually had a human person go to every target account website to see if they had a free trial. That was a piece of work that we did to get ready for this. The analytics is, are they running a Bizzable, a MicroStrategy, a Tableau? Like, how serious are they about measurement? We're detecting what ABM technology they use, like a demand base, for example. And so what we did was we mapped those sort of insights to messages. We built a whole campaign around how to activate your content in a free trial, scenario. How to use our data, our engaged intent data around how people consume content as a way to get a better buying signal, because we know that you care a lot about, analytics and how you measure things. So basically, that sort of segmentation became the basis for how we were going to talk to each of these audiences and the kind of content that we built. And then once we built a lot of this content in these programs, we deployed it across all of these various channels here. One of the first things that we did when we got to this point was we decided to refine the door opener campaign that we had been running through PFL. So we did a really cool video card, which just has a cool wow factor. I mean, you open it up and there's somebody talking to you, and it allowed us to be a lot more sort of direct with the message that we wanted to deliver. We kind of went with this idea that most marketers are a little voyeuristic and they care a lot about what other marketers are doing and learn a lot from their peers. So it was sort of these two important things that these high-performance B2B marketers do. Right, and a lot of it was around, activating their content, providing a much more seamless customer experience where your buyer can self-nurture, and also measuring a better class of buying signal, which is really how people consume content. And so we made this piece available to our sales team, again through PFL within Salesforce, so they could use it as a door opener. And we've seen tremendous results. I mean, across all of the direct mail campaigns, these have outperformed almost anything else. This one has got the third highest revenue attribution and the second highest in terms of pipeline attribution, so active pipes still that we're working on, related to, having been influenced by one of these direct mail pieces. The next thing that we did, so as you remember a minute ago, I talked about these different use cases. Do you have a free trial? Are you running, really great, analytics programs? And basically we aligned campaigns and offers, a lot of it was customer stories, to those different use cases, and we put all those people in little buckets and we deployed these campaigns against all. So if you are a marketer who runs a free trial on your website, you suddenly started to see all this free trial content activation, how TIBCO software converted free trials faster, learn how they did it. And so that was sort of how we decided to deploy these different buckets. And we did sort of have a default campaign as well. And we had a hierarchy for it. So if you were a company that ran a free trial and you had a great analytics approach, you were going to see we were going to cycle through and you're going to see multiple different offers from us. So this was when we started to get into really the personalized, really focused, content specific ABM, what I would call is sort of a much more mature ABM approach. The other thing that we did, and this is really uncomfortable for a lot of people, but I think it's critical, we started to really do away with hard gating of all of our content. So basically, if somebody clicks through on one of those ads or one of those emails or one of those really specific campaigns we're running, they are taken to an experience that looks a lot like this. Sorry, this is a lookbook version. It now would look like PathFactory. I should have updated that. But basically, they're taken to what is called a content track. And this is enabled by our platform. This is a PathFactory content track you're looking at here. But basically the idea is we package up all the related content that user could find valuable in that moment. So if they click through from LinkedIn and they want to see this customer story, they're taken to a place where they can see that customer story, and paired with that they can see 4 or 5 other assets that are highly relevant to their use case or what they might be interested in. It allows us to nurture every single potential buyer at a target account in real time, whether they're known or anonymous. But what we had to get comfortable with was that conversion, traditional conversion on a form, was not the most important metric for success here. We very infrequently put a form in these experiences unless we see really deep engagement. So because we can track how much time a user spends with each individual asset in this experience, that's what our platform does. If somebody shows like they're in here, they're reading every single piece of content, they've spent 5 minutes, we will actually trigger a time-based form. That's another thing that we can do using PathFactory, and say, hey, you seem really engaged. Would you like to, talk to someone in sales? Would you like to take a demo? To try to fast track their way into a sales experience, but we usually make those forms dismissible. So what we have seen is a heightened amount of anonymous, engagement and behavior with our marketing, and now we're looking at the correlation between success with our target account program. I think, if you're really successful, and look, I believe that if these target accounts are the most important thing to you, converting them should not be the #1 goal. Educating them should be the goal, right? You should get them to have a great experience with your brand, get them super educated on your value proposition, and that means that you're not chucking a form in their face every time they click on something, right? And so you have to get comfortable with that. And I do think if you do that, you will see those explicit conversions just come naturally. You will see an increase in site traffic. You will see an increase in demo requests because those people will go, wow, that's maybe something I can't live without. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can talk to these people. So we have really focused on how do we nurture every buyer within a target account off the back of every single channel. You do not click on any offer that we deliver through any program we run without getting to an experience like this, where we're going to allow you to consume as much information as you want in that moment. If you think about it, you know, our B2B buyers are living B2C consumer lives. The expectation they have when they go to Amazon is that homepage of Amazon is completely customized to them. It knows that you just ran out of toothpaste, you know. It knows that it's about to snow in your zip code. It knows that you thought about buying these couple of things, but you didn't actually buy them. And so when you get there, it's this really engaging, compelling experience that's customized just for you. B2B buyers, you know, don't get that experience with B2B marketing. We tend to go, you know, really heavy on the upfront form. You know, we nurture based on, you know, every third Thursday you're going to get an email. But that buyer in that moment may really be ready to consume more information that's relevant to them. So we've basically just taken this completely, you know, all-in approach to we are going to facilitate that binging, that desire to binge consume content whenever we can. The next thing that we did was we got crazy with alerts. You know, and this was uncomfortable for me because I was like, oh gosh, we're triggering so many alerts. But again, because our target account cohort is really finite, right? It's a small amount of accounts. We want our sales team to know anytime someone in that account shows a sign of life. So we send them a lot of alerts when we see buyers behaving in certain ways, filling out forms. If, you know, in the event that we're doing a webinar or something and it requires registration, we want them to know. They come to our website. We also trigger what we call a fast-moving buyer alert, which you see here. This is a real FMB alert that went to someone on the BDR team. Basically, this is enabled by tracking how much time they spend with content. So we're able to say, hey, you've got a buyer at a target account who just came into our nurture. This nurture is called Tinder because they're all aligned to popular dating websites. Came into nurture, looked at 6 assets, and spent 7 minutes and 9 seconds. That seems like a buyer who's really, really engaged, and now would be a great time to call them. So we use this alerting mechanism as a way to helping our sales team prioritize their time and know what to chase, right? Certain alerts are more compelling than others. An FMB alert like this is a very, very deep signal of sales readiness, so they tend to jump on these right away, where they might use some of the other target account alerts that we're delivering to just kind of get an idea of what is happening in that account and figure out sort of where that buyer is on the journey. So that's sort of how we prioritize their time, or help them to prioritize their time. Because again, with its target account program, we are not running a traditional MQL-based funnel. Nothing needs to reach MQL to get passed over. We really want to make sure that our sales team is aware of any behavior within that account because they're only dealing with 130 accounts. Now remember, we still run a non-target account funnel, traditional horizontal demand gen stuff. And when those people reach MQL status, you know, the BDR does get an alert on a round-robin basis that they need to contact that buyer. We also trigger these fast-moving buyer alerts for non-target accounts as well. So results so far, I mean, this has been going on. So we launched this really 100% target account focus in the early part of January. And so far of that target account universe, we've seen a 70% response rate. Now, some of that is anonymous responses. Again, we've just been able to, you know, do a reverse IP lookup, know that we're getting great engagement at target accounts, you know, with our content tracks. We don't necessarily know exactly who those contacts are, and I'm okay with that. Because again, I think that the education of the buyer is the most important thing here. 22% of the contacts who have, you know, engaged with our marketing have binged, which means they've come in and consumed a lot of content at once, right? They've done that Netflix, Amazon, Spotify thing, of saying, oh, you're offering me 5 highly relevant pieces of information right now. I'm gonna sit here and read all of them. I'm gonna spend 25 minutes. I know it sounds so crazy, but it's actually true. It's really sort of, it reflects the way buyers, when they're real buyers, when they're really engaged, how they want to consume information. So we've seen a really high, again, and this tells me that we're focused on the right accounts. We've seen such a high, engagement rate within those accounts that they've got to be the right people, because nobody's coming and consuming our content for fun. I mean, I know we have great content, but it's not like a light afternoon, Sunday afternoon read. If you're coming in and you want to learn all about the ins and outs of content activation and how our data is going to transform your marketing, you're probably a real buyer. So that's helped us to really have a lot of faith in this campaign. And so far, of the total target account universe since we've launched it, we've been able to qualify, which means actually have a real sales conversation with almost 19% of those accounts. So we're seeing really good results. It's now, we're almost the 6-month mark of sort of tracking this. This will be the first time that we really think we have a decent enough benchmark to start getting a little bit more predictive about what we think we can expect from this. This month we will build our first target account demand model, which, in traditional demand gen, you build a demand model every quarter based on funnel conversion and revenue targets and all that stuff, and that tells you what you need to do for volume. We built what we believed was possible demand model when we moved to target account marketing, but we didn't have a baseline for it. So now, 6 months in, we think we have enough data to actually reverse engineer the funnel and figure out what does it take to become, a qualified opportunity at a target account. What does marketing need to do to enable that? Part of that is actually moving to an account-based funnel. It will run 2 funnels, an account-based funnel and a contact-based funnel, standard lead-based funnel. And we're actually coming up, it's kind of shocking. There's very little best practice around this today. So we're coming up with our own kind of definitions around what does it take to be a qualified account. And that's something like a couple of contacts, I've taken these many actions, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the next step for this campaign. But I did want to talk a little bit about our latest direct mail campaign, because, again, I think direct mail has been the cornerstone of this program. It's tangible. I mean, it's a huge value add for the salesperson. So much of the target account universe that we're going after is ice cold, and direct mail provides this really high touch, customized way of talking to our audience. And so we've had a lot of fun with this. So we actually, as I said, we rebranded a couple months ago to PathFactory. And so we ordered all these little cars. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this, but they're these cars that will follow like a path that you draw. You can draw like a big, thick, dark line, and the car will actually follow the path. And so we ordered a whole bunch of these that PFL is going to start deploying on our behalf. And we created kind of this, it's actually going to be delivered almost like a board game. It's going to fold up in this sort of heavy stock. And basically we're trying to illustrate, look, the path that most marketers are putting their buyers on today is not a great path. It's full of, holes and gaps. It's not responsive. It forces them to go hunt around for information. And so that path is not great. And so if you take our little car and you put it on the bad path, it's just going to go off the edge of the paper. By contrast, the good path is highly responsive. We're collecting all this data about how your buyers engage with your content, using that to fuel how you speak to them, letting them binge on content, delivering things of value in the moments where they need it. So if you put your car on the good path, it's going to follow that little path and it's going to stay right on there. So it's a cool, fun, kind of illustrative way to explain the value of what we do. We worked really closely with PFL on this. They were very, very helpful in trying to figure out how to actually deploy this, because there's all these, hiccups with, well, if you fold this board game, now you've created these creases in the paper and the car won't stay on it. And so it's been a labor of love. But I think this has a lot of wow factor. I think it's fun. It's cool. Someone might still take that little car and bring it home to their kid. So it's not just a silly little thing. It's something. And our big goal with this is, can we deliver a direct mail package? Can we enable it easily for our salespeople to do on a one-to-one basis with their best, prospects and their best accounts? And can we deliver something that a marketer might receive and then call all the marketers from their department in to check it out? Like, oh, look, this really cool thing I got. That's a big win for us. And I'll tell you, we see such higher response rates to our BDR outreach after someone receives something like this than before. So just by way of a quick demonstration, I'm hoping this works. Here's the little car, and just to show you what it does, like here's the car on the little path, so you stick it on there, and the line is all pre-drawn, and there you go. So he follows the little path. So it's pretty fun. I actually got this idea because I got one of these little cars for my kid for Christmas this year. And when we rebranded and I was thinking about path stuff, I was like, oh, this would be perfect, these little path following cars. So we used these at the Serious Decisions event as a giveaway this year. And then we were just like, everybody loved them so much, we ran out of them in 5 minutes. It was like, how can we turn this into a great direct mail piece? So that's what we've tried to do. So that is sort of the next frontier. That's where we're headed with our target account marketing. As I said, for us, it is a truly symbiotic, a cohesive, organic process where everything is really tied together, both from a sales and a marketing perspective. And we're really pulling out all the stops. We're not just, it's not just a display campaign here and an email there to the target account cohort. It's really trying to come at this from a really orchestrated way and deliver the best possible experience for those accounts so that we can be successful in selling to them. And that is my story in a nutshell, and I think I did okay on time. So with that, I'm just going to pause and get Rachel back, and I think we're going to see about taking some questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Elle. That was amazing content, and thank you for, as you mentioned, peeling back the curtain and allowing us to kind of see the inner workings of your ABM campaign. We do have a couple of questions, so if there's still time to answer your questions, if you would like to ask Elle a question, please use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will sift through those, and then as we're on the line, we'll ask Elle those questions live. So a couple of questions came in, Elle, and they were specifically geared around your first campaign, which is the viewfinder.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions about that, and these questions, the first two questions are actually from Brandy. So when creating your direct mail, the viewfinder campaign, talk me through the creative process and whether that creative was done in-house or if that was part of the PFL offering, and then what was your call to action on that piece?
Sure. It actually started as a digital piece when we built the whole sort of caveman story, and I'd be happy to share it with folks. We can actually maybe send it out after the event. But we built this really cool digital experience. What we were trying to do was find an engaging way to tell people the story about our data and why our data was so important and why they needed to consider thinking about marketing measurement differently. And so this started with this big brainstorm with my team, and we were sitting around like, how could you do this? And we just kind of hit on this idea of like, well, the way, what if we make fun of the way people do it today, like clicks and form fills, that's so prehistoric, and our data's, so modern, whatever. So that was kind of where the caveman thing was born. And we first built, like I said, this really cool digital asset. It's got sound effects. It's this like kind of almost like imagine like it's like a slide deck, but it's delivered through a PathFactory content track. So you click through, and each little page tells you a new story about this caveman, and it's got all these cool things happening. So we did that, and then we were kind of like, in the next breath brainstorming what we could do for direct mail. And I was like, this story is so nice and simple and easy that I think we could take it to something like a Viewmaster. I had seen Viewmasters done before. I had seen other marketers do Viewmasters. And so we started to kind of source that. The company that did it sent us some samples, and I was like, I think we can do an awesome job with this. We have really great creative in-house. So to answer that question, the creative was all 100% done in-house. All of our creative is. And so we just basically took our digital campaign, and we had to really get economical with how many words, because you can't put a lot of words on a Viewmaster slide. So we had to really slim it down quite a bit. And we broke it into 3 little slides. The last slide is much more about us and about our product. So if you get through our cool caveman story, we tell you a little bit about us. There is in each, so with PFL, they enable the salesperson to customize a note so that when the package is delivered, it's got like a note that's signed by the sales rep. really specific to them. There is a call to action on those little note cards that sends you to a short URL to view the digital campaign. Now, obviously, that's still anonymous to us. We can't exactly track exactly who that person is. And so, you know, again, what we also do is notify the BDR once the package has been received, and they follow up directly. They send an email to that contact, hey, I hope you got our package. Sometimes they'll record a little video to go along with it. And, you know, that's how we're then starting to kind of connect it to a known visitor and try to book a meeting with that person. So that was kind of the process, just, you know, good old-fashioned brainstorming and coming up with an idea and trying to figure out a way to bring it to life.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the caveman story. I think it is so fun and digestible, and it also is something that anyone can relate to. So thanks for sharing that. So we actually have another question from Connor, and this is about attribution. So talk me through from, we can take the Viewmaster campaign again, because you haven't launched the bus campaign yet, correct?
Not yet. Yeah, no, not yet.
Awesome. Well, I'll be interested to hear all the results from that.
Yeah, me too.
So, so for the Viewfinder campaign, I know every marketer, when you're trying to make data-driven decisions, is interested in data and attribution. So from an attribution perspective, how do you at PathFactory kind of consider or give weight to different steps within that particular journey for a future customer?
Yeah, sure. So we use full circle insights for all of our attribution and funnel progression response management. And so basically the way that we set it up with direct mail is when we know that we basically it's a campaign. And so when a salesperson is sending a direct mail package, that person becomes part of that campaign. And when we know that there is a response, meaning it's been received, that's how we do it. Because full circle is looking for a response at the campaign level. So we consider that a response. And that way that campaign and the response to that campaign figures right into our attribution model. We don't weight anything. We give everything. We do an even spread. We do an even spread on. We do an even spread across all the touches. So we've played around with like first touch and last touch, and we've kind of decided that, like, you know, for us, our sales cycles can be on the longer side, not super long, but what we do see is we might talk to a marketer at an event, and we have a great first conversation, and we start marketing to them, and sales starts to court them, and what'll happen is, like, it'll be like 12 months later that we see them at another event or something like that, and that's the thing that kind of breaks it open, and they're like, okay, yes, now is the time, I'm ready to talk to you guys. And so we knew, like, we couldn't really depend all on first touch or all on last touch, because those touches do happen over a fairly long period of time, and that's why we kind of just do the even spread. You know, it's tough because I'm sure, as the person who asked this question is kind of alluding to, like, don't you want to give more weight to this great direct mail campaign that helped you get your foot in the door? You know, and it's true. It would be nice to do that. We just haven't gotten to the point yet where we've decided to, like, weight certain touches. So it's not a thing we do today, but we do certainly track the impact of all this direct mail on, you know, on funnel, on pipeline and revenue.
Awesome. Thank you. So this is a question from Erin, and she wanted to know, how are you taking that ABM approach? And you kind of mentioned this before, that you have your ICP strategy and your ABM strategy. Can you help us understand kind of the mix of number of accounts and kind of how a BDR would flow through kind of both of those lenses?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, in the ICP cohort, like the larger group of companies that are, you know, do meet our ideal customer profile in some way. Now, remember, we've scored them A, B, C, and D. So there is a good, better, best type of ICP, and that's all based on, again, sort of tech maturity and all these different signals or whatever. So that group has probably got like around 4,000 companies in it. Think of it as anyone who uses Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot, HubSpot, like it kind of is based off of what marketing automation platform they use, and then these other signals sort of fill in the more critical thing. Like, so HubSpot for us isn't a super strong signal, but if we see they use HubSpot, they're a really big company, they have a big marketing team, they have a high Alexa rank, and they're also using 3 other really mature technologies that can put them in a better ICP band, right? That's kind of how it works. I mean, if they're using Elle Woulfe or Marketo, which is a really good match for us from a technology perspective, and they're using demand-based Tableau, they're a $2 billion company, like they're going to be an ICPA. So that's sort of how the scoring works. There's like 4,000 companies. Then within that 4,000, we've identified 1,200 of these tip of the spear target accounts. And that's, you know, again, all that means is that's where sales is spending their time. We're going to market to the entire group, but we really, our sales efforts and our outbound prospecting and all that stuff is focused on that target account universe. So that's, so you are a target account and you have an ICP score, right? Like the 1,200 is part of the 4,000, if that makes sense. And then, as I said, we still run a traditional demand model. So, I mean, we're marketing to those ICP accounts, even if they're not target accounts. If one of them hits MQL threshold, they enter the funnel. I mean, we engage with them. But so the BDR team actually is part of the marketing team at PathFactory. And so basically the way that we work it is each BDR owns, you know, co-owns the accounts that they own with their AE. And we basically set for them 25 focus accounts per month. So at the beginning of every month, they get 25 accounts as part of the total accounts they own, as ones we want them to proactively just put time against and go after. And we do that to help them focus, because if I'm a BDR and I'm chasing 200 accounts, let's say, it's just too much to kind of build a strategy around. So setting that 25 accounts really helps them to say, okay, this is my goal. I'm going to try to, and we're running a spiff against it this month. The first person the person who books the most meetings with the 25 accounts they were set, you know, gets an extra day off next week. So we do things like that. And, you know, we do a lot of marketing into those target accounts. So the BDRs are made aware when someone responds or shows engagement. And if it's outside of the 25, they jump right on that. Like, that's a way that they kind of prioritize. But we use all these different sort of strategies to make sure that we are really putting enough effort against those accounts. So I hope that answers the question.
It does. Thank you so much. 2 more questions. So you shared that you've had great results from the Viewfinder campaign. How has that campaign really impacted your speed to SQL?
So we've tracked this quite a bit. I mean, so we've done a lot of work operationally to like tag all these different cohorts and make sure we can keep track of them and isolate them so we can compare them to each other. I mean, I didn't show it, but I mean, we see far faster velocity without a doubt. And again, you know, this is, like I said, I mean, we needed to, this is the first 6 months of just really focusing on these target accounts. So I think we're going to know a lot more. We're actually doing the marketing QBR in 2 weeks. And my revenue ops manager, who unfortunately is at the World Cup right now, so he's going to have a lot of work to do when he gets back from Russia. But I mean, he's going to be doing a lot of this analysis on so we break it down. Let's take our traditional demand that is not ICP or not target account. Let's take our ICP accounts, and let's take our target accounts. These are 3 buckets. And now let's compare conversion in the funnel, velocity, you know, response rates, all these things to see how the different sort of, and that's how we optimize it moving forward. But we do see much stronger velocity for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up the webinar. Elle, again, thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon and sharing your ABM strategy and letting us kind of dig through some of those details that are really important. And I hope that everyone else enjoyed today's presentation. Again, we'll email this recording out to you within 24 hours. And please join us for some future PFL webinars. Thanks so much.
Thank you.